We are now live, and welcome back to certification. That's coach certification training. As a little introduction to what we're doing here, we're doing these live streams as additional deep dive detail to etch out some of the finer points and the shadings around the broad strokes and the big skeleton structure that we create in the training sessions here. So today, this is really centered around what we're actually focused on here in week 2 of certification. Now we're in day 3 officially. And so by this time, there's a good chance that you've already been in the training session if you're in certification training. But for those that are maybe watching this and you haven't been in that training session, or maybe you're not even in certification for that matter, we're focused on what we call accountability coaching. And accountability coaching is just a fancy way of saying finding the best practice coaching methods through which we get our clients to take action. That's it. And what we've been working on this week are those 3 steps that we take in an accountability coaching conversation to actually cause accountability breakthroughs so that somebody really gets what's stopping them, your client, that is, and they realize how that's been hidden either from their view or how they've been hiding it from other people's views. They start to get the impact of that, and then finally they make commitments to transform that whole issue, not to mention recommit to whatever they needed to be following through on the first place as well. And so in that process, there's a lot that can go wrong, right? There's a lot of pitfalls. And so this little training here, or this little live stream that we're covering, do you make these 7 mistakes in accountability? That's really what we're covering, is these 7 very specific mistakes that I see all the time that coaches make when it comes to, and I'm talking about coaches that are trained in this methodology. Some of our top students still make some of these mistakes. So, if you're brand new to the accountability discipline and you're making a mistake or two, like what I'm about to share with you, some of what I'm listing here, then you're not alone. Let's put it that way. We've all made one of these mistakes or several of these mistakes at one point or another. So I want to start just by getting to the point around why I wanted to cover this especially. Obviously, it has to do with accountability, but I wanted to cover these mistakes because accountability is simple. It's a simple practice. There's only 3 steps that we got to go through with our clients, but it's misleadingly counterintuitive. It's misleading that as to how counterintuitive it truly is. And what I mean by counterintuitive is that your intuition is going to point you in one direction in these coaching sessions, while the exact best thing to do, or the right thing to do, or the powerful thing to do in that coaching session is the opposite of what your intuition tells you. In fact, I would go so far as to say your intuition is going to get you, if you follow it, if you just naturally are kind of intuitive and I'm just going to go with my gut feeling, you're going to do the exact wrong thing at the exact wrong time in accountability conversations, much of the time, okay? So if you follow the accountability disciplines path, you will arrive in a place where your client rejects and disagrees with you, where they find themselves helpless or lost, where they get angry or upset, or stuck, or numb, or stonewalling. I mean, this kind of stuff is like, when this happens at a coaching session, what do? Oh, that's great. I'm an awesome coach. I've got a client who's stonewalling, or they're really getting angry at me, or they're numb. They were great when we started this conversation, and now they're numb. What a great coach I am. I think I'll pat myself on the back. I mean, is that what you do? Of course not, right? Because this is counterintuitive. I mean, literally, you doing the right things could bring this kind of stuff up. It's insane. And so we wonder why most coaches can't and won't ever be great accountability coaches. Why it's like 1 in 1,000 coaches do a great job with accountability, and all the rest are just, well, not bad coaches per se, but inept when it comes to accountability. So it's like, no wonder. And I really want you to take, even if you don't watch any more of this training, I want you to take that away, that this is counterintuitive. And if you follow what the accountability discipline truly asks of you, you will have a numb, stonewalling, or angry, or rejecting client. They're going to be attacking you. They're going to be defensive. They're going to hide out. They don't want to get off the phone with you a lot of times. I mean, that's just what happens. Now, I'm not saying, well, that's how great is that? That's what we want to have happen. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying, I mean, don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying, hey, let's make our clients angry. What I am saying is when you follow what accountability asks of you, you truly are kind of loyal to that discipline. This stuff happens all the time. Is that what we want to happen? No. But does it happen? Yes. So let's get into the actual mistakes here. So mistake number one that coaches tend to make in accountability is just not talking about the elephant in the room, not actually saying that's the elephant, right? That's the first mistake, huge. And this one's an obvious one. It's like you can see the elephant in the room. It's huge, takes up half the room. We know that it's there. And yet, this is a huge mistake. Coaches just kind of try to go around it, try to weasel their way through the conversation without bringing up the elephant in the room. The most obvious thing that you don't want to say, that's what you need to actually say in the accountability conversation to be a really great accountability coach, 9 times out of 10. So it's a real mistake not to talk about the elephant in the room. So I'll give you an example. I had a client, I've had several clients like this, and my coaches on my team have had clients like this too, where their client they're always weaseling around all these stories about their life and these stories about why they're not getting what they want. And you ever meet somebody like that who's just really good at, like, they're a big storyteller and you can't get a word in edgewise, and they're just weaving this web of information and narrative and emotion and whatnot, and it's just this complex, it's just a mess, right? And I had this client like this, and we were in an accountability conversation, and they started to go into their pattern, into their stories. And so I just said, stop. Do you know you talk in stories? I want you to notice that what you're saying has nothing to do with the question I'm asking. It's not even the conversation we're having, and yet you have it, and you just totally missed everything that we just talked about as a result of it, and you're taking us into a whole different realm, and it's like really hard to coach you right now when you just keep telling stories. You see that? And I just stopped them, and at first they didn't see it, and I was like, look, that's exactly what you're doing. You did this and this and this. And that's not this conversation. Like, I'm not saying don't get invalidated, but it's just like, this isn't it. And it was the elephant in the room, and this person was just a big storyteller. So, like, if you were to turn to your fellow coach or somebody close to you and, kind of breach confidentiality and say, gosh, I'm working with this client and they're just like this, and you kind of give your first complaint, or you kind of describe them in the way that, you really know about them because you got them pegged, but you hadn't told your client that, that's the thing that I'm talking about. That's the elephant in the room. So you need to get off it and let them know this is what's up. This is what I see. Do you see that? Do you get that? Anytime there's an elephant in the room, let's say it this way. Let's say you and a group of people were in a room, really in a real room, and there is an actual elephant that walks into the room. I mean, you're not in a circus, right? It's unexpected. Anyone in their right mind would mention it, right? Now, yes, they've done studies where this kind of thing happens, and then other people in the room kind of are paid actors, and they're made to just kind of sit there like, okay, everything's fine, to act like everything's normal, right? And then that 7th person or 10th person, like, they feel funny, saying something because nobody else acts like there's any big deal, and so they're like, oh, I guess I better act like there's nothing going on. That's a little bit more realistic as to, like, the kind of experience this is like for a coach. We have all this peer pressure on us to not say anything about the elephant in the room because that other person, that our client, our paying client, they don't want to talk about it. They act like it doesn't exist. The people around them acts like it doesn't exist. They act like it doesn't exist. So like it's just like there's all this silent peer pressure, this tacit peer pressure for you to act like that doesn't exist either. And you can't fold, you can't collapse. You got to be resilient. You got to be a stand for your client and actually mention, hey, there's an elephant in this room. I know you're acting like it doesn't exist, but like we got to talk about this. It's going to get in the way. It's going to be a problem. So that is the first mistake, not saying the elephant is in the room. Second mistake that you tend to make in accountability, quitting when it's hard. Quitting when it's hard. Now, this one we talked about at the beginning of training is like doing it the hard way. Like in accountability, it's like moving on past key questions that were still unanswered, or just letting up, right? Just like taking it easy on a client because they just don't know the answer. Like that's the last thing you should be doing as an accountability coach. Now, that said, you don't want to be rigid. Obviously, you got to be flexible as a coach. At any time, in any discipline, you got to be flexible. If you've ever seen me demonstrate accountability, you'll notice that I don't just do the same thing again and again. I mean, I actually make adjustments to the conversation, right? But I'm still persistent as to what question I'm trying to get answered, as to what step I'm in, being faithful to that portion of the conversation, right? But I'm going to change my approach and be agile in my process to get the answers, right? Just doing the same thing over and over again. Yes, that's very rigid. That's a little bit of insanity, right? So you can change your approach, but don't let up. Don't just move on past what matters because it got hard for you or your client for that matter. So, and especially in step one where you're finding out the cover up and the cause, you got to really be persistent. If you've ever seen me demonstrate this, that's the case. Like it's one of those unwritten things that you'll notice when I'm performing that particular task that nobody comes up with the answer in the first minute or two. I mean, yes, there's exceptions that prove that rule, but it's basically nobody. It's like 9 out of 10 clients. Yeah, I mean, it takes 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that. And there is going to be a point over that 15-minute period, whatever it is, that you will, chances are, think as you're observing me work with that client, he's never going to get the answer to that. It ain't going to happen. That's my client's job. That's the elephant in the room. My client's job is to try to convince me that they don't know the answer, that they're never going to be able to tell me, that they have no clue what's going on. And you know what? Every client that you work with, they're actually smarter than you might treat them, or than they might act. They're as smart as they look, right? And they just really know they got all the answers. And then they act like they don't, and then you act like they act, and you wonder why you're not making it through an accountability conversation with real results. This is it. Quitting when it's hard. So if you fail, you got to drill deeper. Just like we talked about yesterday in the last live stream, when you hit that wall, you got to drill into the wall. Take your time, drill deeper. Fail, drill deeper. It ends up being a stepping stone, and it transforms. So anyway, bottom line is every certification training that I run, I see this happen, that, they're in the front of the room or we're in an interaction together, and, I ask the questions and they don't tell me the answer, and I ask them again and they don't tell me the answer, and then I have to shift and pivot and work with them on that piece and educate them a little bit, and then they still don't quite get the answer, and then I drill deeper and deeper and deeper, and then finally 5, 10, 15, 25 minutes later, after pulling some teeth, they get the answer, right? And you know what? They could have just given it to me in the first place, but I understand. Like, I'm holding their hand. They're in front of a group of coaches. It's maybe a little embarrassing, a little bit of, pressure to perform or whatever. There's all sorts of things that delay that process, right? But that's just par for the course. Don't expect that you're going to be an exception to that rule when you're not me, first of all, and there's probably going to be a different relationship that you'll have with clients that you work with initially. And secondly, you may not know the exact thing to do as soon as you hit a wall. I kind of know. I've been doing it for 15 years. But for you, you might need to come up with the next question or think really hard. It might take you more time. Or you might come up with some things that really just don't seem to make a difference. They don't seem to work. So that's okay. Just keep moving with it and do it even if it's hard. That's okay that it's hard. It's hard for me sometimes in these sessions. Third mistake that you tend to make in accountability coaching, not going deeper. We kind of just talked about that, and we were talking about drilling deeper when it's hard. So don't just follow the script. I mean, we gave you the script, right? We gave you the questions to ask, but don't just follow that. Be a stand for your clients' breakthroughs. Like, that's part of your job here. It's not just to read a script. If all of it was just reading a script, I could just give somebody a worksheet and they could figure it out. That's why, like, do you realize that every discipline we offer in coaching and that you learn in coaching is one that cannot be done with a computer program or with, just a worksheet or reading a book? You realize it can't be done that way? So if you expect to just turn your brain off and not go deeper and not kind of deal with stuff and flex your intelligence muscles and apply intellectual effort to the conversation, well, like you could, I mean, if that really was the case, well, then I could replace you with a book. How valuable are you then? You're not worth much. You're worth $20 maybe forever, like for the whole book, right? The entire coaching relationship is worth $20. That's like nothing. So no, you do not get off that easily. You got to go deeper, and that's going to take more than just reading a script. So if you find yourself reading the script, that's okay. But if you find you're not getting the results, or if you find that you're not getting what you're after in that coaching session, you think there's more going on, that's when you got to go beyond the script and be a stand for your clients' commitments, that even when they're not, and not just read a script. It's like a dead body, like I could just use you as a puppet. That's not okay. That's not going to work. You got to stand for yourself and actually think for yourself in this situation, or else why bother showing up in the first place? Just email your client the questions. Let them fill it out like a form, and then they can just send it to you. You read the answers and say, great, your coaching is done. Congratulations. I'm sure you're fine now. Never going to happen, but I'm just saying that's all you would have to do if you think that you're not going to have to go deeper here in these conversations. So again, like I said, especially in step 1, it also helps in step 2 as well to take some real time and dig deeper. This I see all the time. I see this mistake all the time, even in our top programs, in the mastery program at Master Coach University. Some of our ICF students, they send us recorded call submissions, and I listen to them, and I can hear them reading the script, and then when they don't get the answer or when it doesn't work, they just move on, and they go to the next stage, and they just fail. I mean, at least they attempted it. Sometimes our students don't even attempt it, but they fail because they don't do anything past the script. They're just a puppet on a puppeteer string, just doing what they're told. That's not a coach. You're not being a leader if that's you. Okay, so just you got to get over that and get past it and really be proactive with this, and don't expect somebody to just tell you what to do and just expect that you can do it without thinking about it. That's not coaching. That's just reading off a script. That's like being a personal trainer. That's just like, like I'm not saying anything. Don't get activated about this if you're a personal trainer, but like personal trainer just saying, oh, well, 3 sets of 10, just telling you the same thing over and over again. I'm sure there's personal trainers that go way beyond that, right? But get the idea. No, that's not what we do as coaches. We actually think for a living. We don't just read scripts. So, I actually have a model for this. This is something I drew a picture of. So we've been talking about going deeper, right? So this is kind of like diving. Now, this is my really fabulous rendition of a scuba diver, right? So we're in the ocean, and scuba diver has to dive. Now, just to get into the water, the scuba diver's got to put effort in, right? They got to put intellectual effort. They've got to jump off the boat. They've got to kind of use their fins, etc. They got to turn over. It takes some cardio, right? Some strength to just get under the surface at first. Then, once they're under, they're at a certain level, right? So this is like the surface-ish level with your client. Now, in order to get deeper, you've got to put effort in, and usually that effort, in the realm of coaching session, would be questions, right? So think of these as avenues through which you go deeper. So you're kind of at this level and the client is talking and you're talking to them and you're discussing things, and then you finally say, you know what, I know I got to go deeper, let's do it. And you make a downward turn, you put some effort into it, and you ask a profoundly powerful question that's going to move you on, and boom, you're at a deeper level now, and now you're down here, right? And maybe next, or let's say if you take this avenue, maybe you really have to put some serious effort into making a direct communication with your client, an observation or a statement or a command. You know, that's more of the exclamation represented that way. So it's not even a question. It's like it's coaching them, right? And that took real effort to go there. And then you went deeper with that client. Now you're at this much deeper level. There might just be one question that takes you even deeper, right? So every layer you want to go down, there's a question or a command or a statement or some item of coaching that you must utilize, and it takes energy to do these. They're not in your script. They will never be in your script, right? They just can't be, because they're ones that are a perfect fit for that client. They're exactly what the doctor ordered for that specific client and no one else, or maybe 1 out of 10 clients. And I can't script 1 out of 10. That would be insane. It would be too many crazy lines. You know, you have 20 different lines going eventually in the decision tree. You know, that's not a script. So we do the best we can with our systems. That's, by the way, one of the reasons why in Master Coach University, if you're in the mastery program, in accountability, we have flow charts that will have many nodes of different directions to go in. And each one of those is a kind of a scripted or a cataloged training around many conversational frameworks that you may need to put forth there for your client and with your client to go deeper as well. So we're giving you the outline here in certification. So questions and profound statements or challenges are the keys to going deeper, as it shows here. You know, you're swimming deeper and you're putting intellectual energy in, you know, in the metaphor of the physical energy that you would use as a great scuba diver. So, make sense? All right, let me know if it doesn't. Any questions, hit me up in the chats. Fourth mistake that coaches make in accountability: not finding the cause, not finding what actually caused that client to break their word, to break their commitment, to not follow through on what they're committed to. And the reason why this is so critical is because the cause and discovering what that cause is the basis of everything. We're not just talking about like giving somebody some tips or, you know, cheerleading them and kind of prodding them to the next step. We're literally looking for what actually is at the source of what has you not follow through, what has you out of action. We're actually interested in that, to the point of knowing that that is the linchpin in whether that client's ever going to break through or not. That's it. So not finding the cause is a huge mistake. Fifth mistake coaches make in accountability coaching: getting caught up in your client's bullshit, getting caught up in your client's BS. So this one, I'll just tell you a quick story. You might even see this at some point in a replay somewhere if we publish it. I remember last time we had an on-site certification, I was calling out like one of our mastery program students. She was coaching somebody and she said, well, she said this and it just didn't go anywhere. And I realized this person was just sitting there just like a wallflower, just listening and just basically being social, not being a coach, just being their client's buddy, right? And so I just got really intense because it was in accountability mode, as you might imagine. And I just said, you know, like the reason why that didn't work for you, why you didn't get through step one, is because your client didn't even answer the question. They just gave you a bunch of bullshit and you just listened to it and you just ate that up. And the individual that the coach was coaching, you saw her turn red and she stood up and she grabbed the microphone, because we were on mics, right, and being amplified because we were in a training room, right, and she just started charging in and attacking me. Is like, wait a second, you just told me that was bullshit, and I wasn't even coaching her at the time, right? I was coaching my coach on coaching them, right? So what did I know, right? and I had to handle that. But the bottom line is these two students of ours, they had some religious beliefs in common, and that client was talking, quoting Bible verses and things like that, and nothing bad, nothing wrong, just had nothing to do with the questions that were being asked, right? And didn't directly answer the question and just ended up meandering around, and they clearly got off track as a result. And so they just got kind of sucked into Bible stories instead of actually dealing with the coaching, which, at the end of the day, that is, the story's not bullshit, but it's bullshit that they just ended up completely flying off the handle. And I was really disciplining my coach, the coach that was a Master Coach University student, that she wasn't being at all responsible for wasn't owning the space of the session at all. Just letting their client and them just go off into, like a lunchtime conversation, as if that's what you'd get paid for. Like, wouldn't it be nice if we just all got paid to socialize with people, just go to lunch and talk to people and, sip our tea and gossip about life and listen to our clients' complaints and stuff? I mean, wouldn't that be just like, that would be like effortless. I mean, we could make $200 an hour doing that. Like, what a world that is. Doesn't exist for most coaches. Just doesn't exist. I mean, maybe some amazing marketers can do that, who are marketing to the right high-end clients. But for the rest of us humans, like, you actually got to deliver something beyond what would normally happen in the bar or the tea time or, your living room with your buddies. No, that's not going to pass. It just doesn't happen. So, and ultimately that kind of thing also includes and encompasses the sixth mistake coaches make in accountability coaching, which is enabling or tiptoeing around your client. Like, just placating them, just putting up with them, just like, cheerleading them and just egging them on, or tiptoeing around them like, okay, I can't say this, I can't ask that question, because that would maybe actually change something. I might actually provoke something, and I'm not committed to provoking anything, so I can't be provocative, right? So on the other hand, I am actually going to be pretty intense with you about this, and even provocative, not because I want to be a jerk, but because I'm actually committed to provoking something. So whatever your client is, whatever you think they are, scared or weak or spineless or just, crazy, or just whatever your judgment is of your client, is your downfall. Your judgment of your client is your downfall. Now, I'm not saying you're wrong about it. You might be right about that client, and that judgment might be right spot on. Probably is. But that's your downfall as a coach. If you treat them as if that judgment is true. I'll say that again. Your judgment of your client, even if it's correct, is your downfall as a coach. You will fail as a coach if you treat your client as if that judgment is accurate. So I have all sorts of judgments of my clients. Oh, that person's really a jerk, or that one, they really just, like, they're full of themselves. Or, that client over there, that one, they're egotistical. That client over there, they have no clue how to communicate with people. It's like, I got all judgments, all sorts of amazing judgments that I make, right? I'm human. To be human is to judge, right? But I never, ever, 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 ever treat my client as if that's who they are. Now, I might bring that up with them. I might even say, you know what, like, just from what I see, you're being pretty egotistical about this, right? Like, I could actually share that with you as my client, right? But I'm not going to treat you like that's you, because even though I might even say it, in the moment I say it, if somebody's egotistical, what's the last thing you'll say? That they're egotistical, to them at least, right? Because you wouldn't do that, because they get upset, because their ego would get bruised. If somebody's scared, what's the last thing you'd ever say? Is that they're scared, because they'd be too afraid to deal with it, right? And we could go on and on about this. So that ends up being the elephant in the room, and we tend to avoid those things, and we treat them as if they are those things. When I tell you you're egotistical, or when I tell you you're being a jerk, when I tell you you're selling out on yourself, I don't mean that's you. I mean that's what you're up to right now, or that's what I think you're up to right now. Because I know you're way more than that, which is why I can't not bring it up, okay? And I'm not saying you have to bring that up every time, but if you treat your client as if that's them, without actually confronting it and being responsible for it, that's going to be your downfall. So, and what that really is tiptoeing around them, enabling them, placating them. You know, there's an individual that I know who she overreacts to everything. Everything is a super drama for her. Okay. And everyone around her, I'm not talking about coaches, just all the people, all her family and friends, they lie to her and they avoid telling her certain things and they tiptoe around her because they know their judgment of her is that, just like I said, she's crazy, she's overactive, she's overly emotional, she's nutty. And so they treat her like that. And so that just makes her more nutty, as you could imagine, right? Because that's the way they treat her. So if anybody around her was not to treat her that way, she would completely transform. Because can you imagine everybody around you, tiptoeing around you, lying to you, holding things back, hiding things from you, playing this weird, convoluted game? Do you think you wouldn't notice that? Of course you would. Do you think you wouldn't act a little crazy and a little overreactive after a while, being treated like that for a while? Now, I'm not saying a chicken and the egg. I mean, who knows what was first, right? But we got to be the exceptions that prove that rule. That's the way people operate with each other, but we can't operate that way. We got to go, again, like I said, this is counterintuitive. Intuition would be like, okay, treat them like that's who they are because that's who they are, right? But we got to go against that and say, wait a second, I'm not treating them like that because that is not who they are. Even if I think that's who they are, that's not who they are. They're way more than any judgment that I might have of them. They're way more than how they're acting right now. They're way more than any limitation that they look like they have. So, yeah, that's your downfall if you treat people like your judgments of them. And don't hold back in sharing your judgments if that's what you think there is to do in that session, because that totally could be suitable as well. So you might have seen this if you're in this training right now and you're watching this live stream. I was in the demonstration that I did, the accountability demonstration that I did in the training session. We had a client that was scared. And she actually admitted, she's like, I'm afraid, I'm scared. I think she said scared. But I didn't treat them like they were scared because I knew they were more than that. Even though I knew they were scared, and I discussed it with them, and that was not the elephant in the room, really. That was what she brought out. I didn't allow that explanation of her being scared make me think, oh, I have to treat this woman like she's scared. I treated her like she was way more than just scared. Like I knew she was scared, but I treated her like I knew there was more to her than just this game that she's been playing called being afraid. And we addressed it. Like we didn't just step over it. And lo and behold, once we got to what that covered up was that she was being lazy. And all of a sudden, as soon as she got that she was being lazy, scared just disappeared. All of a sudden, scared was nowhere to be found. So I did not let my judgment and her judgment of her at that point of her being scared stop me and stop her from breaking through that, and then we all saw it. I mean, if you saw that session, you saw this is not a scared woman. She's being scared at the moment, but she's not scared. There's way more to her than scared. And her power came back, and her power was always there. It was just covered up with this game of being scared. So does that make sense? It's like however your client is acting right now, they're way more than that. And you can't let yourself treat them as if that's all there is to them, right? Even if you judge them that way, and even if it's somewhat accurate. So the way you can look at this, it's just another little picture to put on this one. Think of it like enabling is like one of the masks that your client wears, like treating them like that's them and nothing more than that. And the fact is your client's got a million masks and they all suit them in different ways. And the bottom line is your job is to look past all the masks eventually and hopefully take some of them off or support and facilitate your client in taking some of those off so they can get to not what's real. It's not about what's real, but at least get rid of the layer that's there right now that seems to be blocking them from actually getting what's going on, that's stopping them from following through on their commitments. Does that make sense? Any confusion about this, let me know. This is the enabling process. This is the tiptoeing process of playing this weird act. And it's this convoluted thing that humans do. And we can't be stuck in that as coaches. We're here to be the leaders, not a bunch of followers enabling and tiptoeing around the people that paid us to coach them. They deserve more than that. You are robbing them of coaching by operating in that way. So, yeah, I mean, don't mistake the coach role that you take on for a friend role. Friends tend to enable and tiptoe. They tend to play mask games a bit. And sometimes that can work okay in friendships. It can still be an enjoyable relationship. And now you might decide to believe a real friend is somebody who's going to tell somebody the truth and respect them enough and trust them enough to do that. Not everybody believes that. And even people that believe that generally don't act that way, right? But as a coach, you got to be more than just a friend. Don't let the friend role that you take on, that friend mask, bar you from what you're capable of as a coach. Because I know that there's more to you than just being real friendly. You cannot let yourself be limited by just being a friend. I'm not saying you can't be a friend, but don't let that limit you. It sounds like such a nice thing. Oh, I'm a friend, right? But there's insidiousness to this friendship that comes in the package of inauthenticities, comes in the package of wearing that friend mask all the time when your job is to be their coach. So I hope that distinction makes sense. Seventh and final mistake that coaches make in accountability is wimpy follow-up. Wimpy follow-up. So the client's going to continue to test you usually. Even if you crack the wimp once, don't expect, now I've got the breakthrough. I don't have to be a great accountability coach for my client anymore. Most of my clients, I'll have to do that 3, 4, 5 times to really be effective with them. And so it may be different ways, different conversations, but still, you got to be unrelenting. You got to be unrelenting for your client in order to serve them as an accountability coach. Consistency is key. Not consistency of the way that you're operating with them, but consistent commitment to them and consistent application of the principles you're learning here and the distinctions and the spaces that we can stand in to really empower that relationship. And then finally, I actually wrote this down because we're just about out of paper for this particular chart. Might as well use the last page. You got to be at peace with being something other than maybe you had hoped you'd only get to be as a coach. You got to be at peace with sometimes being the enemy. You got to be at peace with being annoying for your clients sometimes. You're just going to show up that way sometimes. You got to be at peace with, your client judging that you're just antagonistic. You got to be at peace with your client making you wrong or just being wrong. Sometimes you will literally be wrong. And you got to be at peace with being harsh sometimes. What your client will maybe judge as harsh. And again, am I telling you be harsh? I don't know. I mean, you probably will judge that you're being harsh sometimes when you're literally just being intense enough with your client. Barely intense enough. Or maybe not intense enough, right? I see most coaches judge their own intensity level with way too much harshness to the point of just end up being wimpy, like I said. So sometimes you're going to be the enemy, annoying, antagonistic, wrong, harsh. That's just being an accountability coach. Hey, look, you don't want to be these things? Don't tell your clients you're going to hold them accountable. Don't tell your clients you're going to be their accountability coach because you're not. You're just not going to do it. And that's honest, and I can totally respect that. There's lots of other different types of coaching and different domains that you can work within, different disciplines of coaching. So I totally respect if you're just not going to do this, you're not up for it. Frankly, the one-on-one clients I still do work with, I tell them right off the bat, like, I'm not here to hold you accountable. I will take you through accountability, but I'm not, like, if you want an accountability coach, I have coaches on my team that'll do that for you. That's not my main role. It's just not. And sometimes I do bring that up with them, and I do operate as an accountability coach, but it's not my main role, and I handle that right up front so they know. So they don't mistake what I'm promising with what's really going to happen in my coaching relationship with them. But this is not your role, but this is who you end up being at times for your client. And if you can't be at peace with that, you're not going to be very effective as an accountability coach. So there's one last way of looking at this, and I don't really have a prop for this, but think of it this way. Your client is coming to you with all these excuses and reasons why not, and problems and explanations and story. And think of it like in the metaphor of your client's bringing you this bowl of water and saying, here's all my problems. Here's all the reasons why not. Here's all my inauthenticity and my story and my excuses and all that stuff. They're bringing you this. They bring you this bowl of water, and they tell you how much they want to change this bowl of water. They're carrying this around with them, saying how much they want to change it, right? That's how weird it is. Your job is to turn that bowl upside down, just to flip it on its head. And here's the deal. In that physical metaphor, you could imagine somebody's carrying this water around, bitching about the water. Nobody's going to do anything with it. They're just going to let them continue to do that, right? All their friends and family and whatever. So you got to stand out from that crowd. And you're going to do the thing that nobody else will do. You're going to take that and say, oh, you don't want this? And you're going to grab that bowl and flip it over. And when you do that, all the water comes out. All their excuses, all their inauthenticities, all their stories, all their garbage, it goes all over the floor, so to speak. But now they don't get to have those excuses anymore. Now they don't have those issues. Now they don't have the thing that they were acting like was getting in their way. That's it. So those are the 7 mistakes. Hope it made sense. I will talk to you next time. Like and share this with anybody that you know can use it. It always makes a difference for the algorithm for us to get a like here and there. So I really appreciate it if you do that. And let me know in the comments if you have any questions, anything that is confusing for you. And if you want to make sure you get notified when we actually have these conversations, then make sure you subscribe on YouTube, because YouTube will push this to you. If you hit subscribe and you hit the bell, you'll be in great shape. Take care, and I'll talk to you in day 4 of week 2 of Coach Certification.